A little while ago, maybe in the last season or the one before that, I did a series of episodes that were all about examining some of these phrases that we carry with us, some of these truisms or aphorisms or, sort of common sayings and the meaning that they can hold for us. So things like, the show must go on. There's always pride before a fall. Don't get too big for your boots.
Welcome to the Henny Flynn podcast, the space for deepening self-awareness with profound self-compassion. I'm Henny. I write, coach and speak about how exploring our inner world can transform how we experience our outer world, all founded on a bedrock of self-love. Settle in and listen and see where the episode takes you.
So I've just been thinking about this. I'm actually now sitting on the sofa in our retreat house, our little cabin that we have here for clients to come and stay in or guests to come and stay in order to have a time of deep rest and deep relaxation here at our home. And every now and again, Anton and I will come and stay here, and we're doing that this weekend. It's a long weekend in England and in Britain, and we're spending that long weekend staying in our own retreat house. And the weather is spectacular. The sun is shining, the sky is blue, and the birds are singing, and it all feels very beautiful. And I realised yesterday that I had completely forgotten to do this week's episode of the podcast. And I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry if it's something that you really love to listen to at a particular time, maybe, on a Saturday morning, or during the Sunday. It's now Sunday evening. And because we had things planned, and I wasn't able to get the podcast done in time for it to hit its usual schedule. And so I chose to let that go. I chose to not get caught up in the story of I've made a commitment. I say that I'm going to produce the podcast each week. And, if I'm able to do so, I really should do that, because that's part of how we, honour our commitments. And all of that is true, of course. Ordinarily, I do show up. And if you've been listening to the podcast for the last few weeks, you'll know that, a couple of episodes I've actually recorded from hospital, where I've been sitting with a loved one who's been very unwell. And, and even in those times, it's like I've shown up, I've delivered the podcast. And like I say, for some reason, this weekend, it just slipped my mind. I don't think it's ever happened before. And I'm curious about it. I suspect it's because my body is and my mind has been really needing to deeply rest and to reset, because of the stuff that I've been dealing with in my personal life over the last few weeks. And so, I'm trusting that. That's absolutely okay. Um, and and also then I was sort of lying here just thinking about that phrase, the show must go on. And really what I'd love to talk about is the fact that the show doesn't always have to go on. If that's one of the stories that you're carrying, it's definitely one of my stories that I'm carrying from my formative years. Then I think it can be really interesting to explore what it means to us, either to insist, um, no matter what the circumstances are, to absolutely insist that the show must go on. And also what the flip of that could mean. What's the resistance to the idea that the show doesn't always have to go on? And or what might be the fear about what might happen if the show doesn't go on, if we don't continue to do the thing that we've said we were going to do. And I think there's obviously real nuance here, because so often, these commitments, when we've promised to do something, when we have a strong sense of duty, when we're caring for another person or other people, when things of importance are relying on us, of course, then it's important that we do as humans, behave in a reliable way, so we're not letting people down. And then there's the kind of the nuance starts to be, where have we created rules that actually are within us? Where have we started to fabricate a story about our identity, or how we show up in the world, or what other people might think about us, if we don't follow through on something that we've said we're going to do? And so like how do we find our way from committing to such an extent that we hit a point of burnout, potentially, where we end up overextending ourselves, where we put everybody else's needs so far above our own that actually it's to the detriment of our own well-being, emotional, physical, psychological well-being. And then sort of understanding, well, how might it be if we begin to sort of play at the edges of some of these stories or these beliefs that we might hold? So staying very specifically with the show must go on, how might it be to just really gently ask the question, well, what's the worst that could happen if I don't step forward? So in the case of doing the podcast, definitely in the past, I would have been in agony about not having shown up. I would have felt that I was not only letting you down, that I was in some way kind of letting down a story that I held about myself, about myself being someone who was always totally and utterly reliable. And I think also it goes much deeper as well. It goes into the place of identity. And I'm interested, I'm curious how, now the adult sort of, woman that I am, and with the the sort of the work that I've done on getting to know myself and getting to understand the stories that I hold, why actually now it feels okay. And also kind of trusting that it feels okay for you too to listen to this. And I'm really curious, how does this land with you? Do you hold a story that you must always show up no matter the cost? Or are you able to be discerning in the moment of when you're making commitments? Are you able to say, actually, this is okay for me, but this isn't? Or are you someone who or have you found, sort of there have been times in your life, maybe as you've sort of got to know yourself better, where you're able to at times say, actually it isn't okay for me to um, to do this thing, even though I've said that I would. And I also, like, even as I'm saying this, I kind of feel like, oh my God, there's so much. Well, there can be, sort of feelings of shame and guilt, and I'm even feeling sort of in myself, like, is it okay for me to talk about this? So, these stories, these beliefs, they run really deep, and I say again, of course, this isn't about just abandoning people. This isn't about um, being so unreliable that you never show up, um, or that you know someone else's needs never matter. This is about how do we find that balance, and I think that's I think it's a really interesting question, and sometimes for me, when we find something which actually um, creating the podcast, it's something that I've deliberately turned into a playground for myself. And I've talked about this before on here, that I allow myself to sort of press into the edges of what feels okay for me, to be really vulnerable, to try out thoughts and ideas, and to trust that they're going to be received in the way that that they're intended, and to know that I will still be okay if for whatever reason they're not. And I think that's also a kind of big part of this work of how do we practice this art of discernment, where we're able um, to be in the world with profound compassion, and be with ourselves with compassion too. So, and then here I am on Sunday evening, rather than uh, Friday, when I would ordinarily record it. And I'm calm, and this feels really interesting. I'm noticing lots of different emotions going through me. This feels like an interesting thing to explore, and I'd really love to hear your thoughts. And the other thing as well, just for those, I've had so many gorgeous messages from people wishing me well, wishing my loved one well. And I just want to let you all know that we no longer have to spend every day in the hospital, and that they are now home. And it's an enormous relief. And I'm so grateful to everyone for all of your kindness and compassion, and I just want to say thank you so much, whether you wrote to me or you just had the thought, or just thank you so much. Okay, so there we go. I think that's the end of today's episode, and I want to send you so much love. And if there's something in your life that is feeling like a commitment that's just a bit too far, like a commitment that's just asking too much of you, then maybe a question is to sit with, is just to ask, well, what other course of action might be available to you? There's lots of space between this and that, and maybe there are some other options available for you too. All right, sending loads and loads of love, and a hug and a wave.